On a deserted island, somewhere in the Pacific, a plane goes down. Some British schoolboys are the only survivors of the crash. It's paradise for them. A huge adventure just waiting to begin. On the first day, they set up their society, which has 3 rules: have fun, survive, and make smoke signals for passing ships. But it doesn't work. The group disintegrates, becomes aggressive, becomes brutal. When a British naval officer comes ashore, 3 of the boys are dead, and the island is a wasteland. This, of course, is the plot of Lord of the Flies, written by English schoolmaster William Golding in 1951. And to call the book a bestseller is an understatement. It has exerted a powerful pull on its readership ever since it was first published. It portrays humanity at its worst. It confirms our most deep-seated assumptions that human beings are essentially savage in nature, with civilized behavior just a thin veneer that can be easily stripped away at any time. All this feels so obvious to us that we often don't notice it's there, buried in our personalities and built into the way that we perceive the world. But the thing is, Lord of the Flies is a novel. It's not real. In his book, Humankind, the Dutch author Rutger Bregman set himself to question the basic premise of Lord of the Flies. He wondered, had a group of children ever been shipwrecked on an island, and what happened? It turned out that in 1966, 6 boys were discovered by Australian sea captain Peter Warner. They had run away from their school in Tonga, and they had been marooned on the rocky little island of Ata for more than a year. They'd been given up for dead. Funerals had been held for them. But here they were, alive and well, having set up a food garden, rain barrels, a gymnasium, a badminton court, chicken pens, and a permanent fire. They began and ended their days with song and prayer. If they quarreled, they took time out, and the 2 boys went to opposite ends of the island to cool off until they reconciled. One of them had slipped off a cliff and broken his leg. The others had climbed down after him, brought him back up and set his leg using sticks and leaves. They had survived a drought and a storm and the destruction of the raft that they had tried to build. And they were fine. All of them were fine. They were so fine that the owner of the boat they'd borrowed to escape a year of boarding school reported them to the police, and they were welcomed home with a trip straight to jail, although they were set free soon after. It would appear that in real life, human nature isn't what it's often assumed to be. On this day of the Jewish year, we spend a lot of time with our human nature. 10 times over the course of the day, we will be reciting a comprehensive list of confessions covering body and soul. It looks as though there is no part of us that is whole, no part of us that isn't wrong. Maybe we're just badly wired. Maybe we should all be sent back to the factory for a reset. But if we look more closely at the actual language of our confessions, they tell a different story. Chatanu, Avinu, Pashanu. Chatanu is translated very often as we have sinned, but it doesn't mean exactly that. The image evoked by the Hebrew is more of a veering off course, a kind of misdirecting, like an arrow that's been crookedly shot. While the Torah provides that we should bring a sacrifice, a chatat, if we have done something like this, so clearly something did go wrong and does need correcting, the wrongdoing feels more like an external phenomenon than a manifestation of our nature. And the same is true of Ivinu. The Hebrew word is often rendered as iniquity, but it evokes being twisted or distorted, quite literally bent out of shape. And pashanu shares with many, many other Hebrew verbs that begin with peshin or pe'ayin or petzade, the sense of being broken or exploded or shattered. The thing that all three of these terms have in common, chatanu, avinu, pashanu, is that they aren't innate. They are external forces that have consequences, but they're not built in. They're what happens when something is acted upon. So what is the something? I suggest that it's our true nature, our human nature. And perhaps our human nature is good. Over the past 6 months, I've often been thinking of the Pizetzner Rebbe, Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapiro, who was rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto all through the darkest years of the mid-20th century, all through World War II, right up to the time that he was deported to a concentration camp. And his wisdom today is just about as relevant as it's ever been. And this is what he writes. He writes, "Consider a smoldering ember. Because it is covered in ash, we don't know whether there is a flame before us, but when we pour on water, it suddenly steams and hisses. It is the same with all the holy energies that are found in every single thing and person in the world. They are only covered up with ash and dirt." We can think of his teaching this way. Yom Kippur is the day that we pour on the water. In fact, Yom Kippur, as envisaged by Rabbi Akiva and others, is itself water. It's a mikveh. Our true natures are the holy energies, pure and good, but they are covered up by what my Chavruta Rabbi Yael Sedov calls the shmutz, and they're only revealed when we pour on the water once again. So what is today for? If we're not in ourselves sinful and iniquitous and criminal, if we don't ourselves need to be straightened out and corrected, then what is the point of teshuvah? And how are we supposed to practice it? I suggest, and I think it's very apt in the middle of a pandemic when hygiene and cleanliness have taken on a new importance, that our task today, Yom Kippur, is to wash ourselves and get clean, to get rid of the schmutz, so that our true natures, our human natures, our good natures can once again shine clearly. I don't think it's an accident that today we read about the high priest. His everyday work, once he was done with the pomp of Yom Kippur, was to keep the sacred menorah burning clear and bright, while his juniors cleaned away the ashes from the altar, so that every sacrifice could be made perfectly. And we notice once again this metaphor of cleaning away what doesn't need to be there. So this Yom Kippur, maybe we'll pour on the water. Or this Yom Kippur, maybe we'll think about clearing away the ashes or straightening the wicks for the plane. And as we do so, let's remember those boys from Tonga and the good society that they built. And once we have cleared away our schmutz, and once we have reminded ourselves that we shine, then let us create a good society of our own. Gmar Chatima Tova.